All right then. Good afternoon, and then let's proceed to our today's topic, which is marketing decisions. We're starting with decisions at what we call a strategic level, and that entails segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So just to show you where we are in terms of decision-making process. The strategic level, as you perfectly well know, is something that you, when you take this long-term view, strategic decisions are made for many years in advance, and this is the general path that you will be walking on as a company. And that strategic level involves the decision regarding the segmentation of your market, selection of a target market, and then positioning of your offer. And after you do that, you accomplish your marketing objectives by designing the marketing mix, by designing product, place, price, promotion elements, so that you can support your positioning, that you use in order to have this unique position in your target market that is supposed to be the most profitable of all of the segments. So, first part of this class is going to be about about the STP procedure. And just to remind you, because again, this is not the principles of marketing course, so we are not going to go into much detail, but just to refresh your memory and to put you on the same page. What is the STP? It starts with segmenting, and segmenting means that you look at the general market, which means all of the customers, let's say in the foreign market, and you divide them into smaller groups of customers. We call them segments, and those segments have to have similar characteristics and needs within the segment, and they have to be clearly different from other segments. So that's the idea of segmentation. And the common segmentation bases which are used include demography, geography, psychography, behavioral aspects, also financial aspects, and such. So you look at the big market and you divide them into, let's say, men, women, people over 50, people below 50 years old, people above average income, people below average income, people living in big cities, people living in villages, and then you describe them. And those criteria, those segmentation bases, which are easy to obtain, like demography, geography, economics, they are typically the least useful to understand who your customers actually are. Because just because you're a man at the age of 21, living in a big city, doesn't tell you much about who you are as a customer, right? So those easy segmentation basis, segmentation criteria are used more as descriptive aspects, which add information to the key description of customers. And these typically come from understanding those psychographic profiles and behavioral patterns of your customers. So you would like to know whether people are heavy users of your product, whether they use it occasionally. If so, what is the occasion? Are they risk-taking? Are they innovative? Are they creative? Are they eco-conscious and stuff like this, right? So you want to have this information first, and then you will profile your segments in more detail, saying, oh yeah, okay, so those innovative, eco-conscious people, they tend to be roughly in the age of, and the majority of them are men or women and so on, right? So this is segmenting. And you have, as a result, you will have a market divided into many groups. Then what happens? You do targeting. And targeting means, like a target, right? Target shooting. You have to select those segments which are best for you. And by best, I understand that there is a best profitability, accessibility, and also best match, best fit between your core competences, your key strengths, and what your customers want. So you look for further information that will describe this group of, or these groups of customers, and you try to determine how big the segments are they growing or shrinking, how fast, what is the competition situation, how many other companies do what you do, what are the substitutes, what are the entry barriers, what is the potential profitability, what are your resources, are you known in that segment, do they already know your brand, and so on and so on. So after you get all of that information, you decide which segment or segments are the best for you and which of them are you going to focus on. Because the idea of marketing is that your activities are effective because they are focused. So you don't want to be present, especially if you have small resources. You cannot be present everywhere. You cannot please everyone. You have to start with the group that is a best fit for you. And then you do the positioning. And the positioning is a little bit of fact and a little bit of magic because you want to create this clear, distinctive, desirable image of the product or brand in the minds of target market. And good positioning means that if people, for example, say, oh, what is the top sport car in the world? What comes to your mind when we say top sport car? What is it, Maciek? I did not hear. You're muted.
McLaren.
Sorry, what was it?
McLaren.
I don't think I can, either don't know, put it on chat. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to putting you on the spotlight, but you seem to have the answer. So let me see what it is. And if it's, okay. McLaren. Oh, okay. That's good. All right. Are you watching Formula One? Oh, here we go. That's why. Yeah, okay. So there would be McLaren. But if we talk about cars available to regular public and people can buy, yeah, last race the same. Yeah, I know. What is it, Dubai? Yeah, I'm watching it as well. Fingers crossed for Max, if you ask me. Okay, so anyway, if you typically, Maciek apparently knows too much about Abu Dhabi, yeah. Maciek knows apparently too much about the cars, but if you ask regular person, they would say something in the line of like Ferrari or Ford Mustang or like cars like that, right? Because they are accessible to the public. I don't think you can drive McLaren typically on the streets. But anyway, that just means that this is the clear positioning. In Poland, if you ask people what is the Christmas drink that you put on the table during Christmas Eve, you know what people will say? They will say Coca-Cola. Just because Coca-Cola has this strong positioning, they have those Christmas commercials and they are everywhere with those polar bears and Santa Claus and so on, and people accommodated Coca-Cola as a Christmas drink. So that's a strong positioning when people kind of like have a clear idea who you are and what you can do. And you want to create that positioning with the use of marketing mix, the communication, the product, packaging, pricing, and so on. So when we look at the phases of the procedure, each of these elements, each of these stages actually has several steps that you go through. Like you have to identify the right criteria, divide the market, define and describe the market. Then you assess the attractiveness, profitability, you choose the market strategy, and you do your positioning. So these are all the things that you should be roughly aware of from like the principles of marketing course. And this is also something that you have to keep in mind when you do your project and when you think about your internationalization strategy, because your current segmentation, your current strategy of the company will be the starting point for what you do when you go abroad, right? You will always refer to your current domestic strategy and you'll have to tell me what it is, and then you'll tell me how you modify it. Oh, okay. I also have a visual to show you how the segmentation works. So this is a market consisting of many different customers. This is The segmentation, when they are put into groups which somehow make sense within, they have similar needs and preferences, but they are uniquely different among each other. And then targeting means that you select one of these that you like most, that you have the best fit, that is the most profitable for you. When you go abroad, you actually have to decide how much your strategy, how much your segmentation approach will be different from what you have at home. So let's assume that you have a certain group of customers, which are your domestic customers. They buy your product, they consume or use your product, and you will have to describe them. You'll have to understand who they are. What is the profile of these people? And please remember that there is no product or service for everyone, right? Maybe funerals, but other than that, there is always some kind of specialization, and you have to think what these criteria, what these descriptors are. Because when you go to a foreign market, you will have 4 options available. You will be able to either identify common segments in many countries, which means that in every country, it is actually exactly the same group of customers, or you will keep the product the same, but you will be aware that the product is used differently in each country, hence different segments in different countries. It is possible that you will see some similarities. This is this regiocentric approach when you group countries and then you create an offer for each of the groups. And then finally is the one that is the most dispersed. You have different special segments in each country, and this is the full polycentric approach. Let me show you some examples, and let me illustrate how these approaches look in a moment. Because before we go to these examples, let me mention that the positioning of your offer, so this strategy of communication, of all of those efforts and activities that will lead to creation of your unique position, this in terms of the foreign markets will have to be either standardized or adapted, which means that you either keep it the same, like Coca-Cola does with their slogan, enjoy Coca-Cola, or Nike, just do it, or I don't know, there is an electronic company that says innovation that surprises. My computer, Asus, says in search of excellence. So these are standardized approaches to positioning, because it's kind of like all the same. Or adaptation. And adaptation means that you'll play with the meaning. You will, especially if the product is used differently, you will have to adapt your positioning. You will have to adapt your communication strategy and other elements of marketing mix. Okay, so let's go back to segmentation and those 4 different approaches that you have from this aspect. The first one, as we said, common segments in different countries, which means that your segmentation of or the target segment of your foreign market is exactly the same as your domestic segment. And that works best for people or for customers and products which are either specialized, hobby-related, highly technologically advanced, perhaps industrial, globalized, or for people with very high income, like luxury brands, right? Luxury brands are for people who can spend 100,000 euro on a bag. And this is a very precise group of people, right? You have to have 100,000 euro of this disposable income that you can just spend on stuff like purses and bags, right? So this is a special group of customers, and it's the same in every country. These are just purely the richest people that there are. So in this case, the segmentation looks roughly like this, right? My criteria was a millionaire. So a millionaire is a person who has a million, whatever the currency is, right? So let's say that we assume that we will look for euro millionaires. So those people who have above 1 million euro, they can be considered millionaires. And as you can see, in each country, the segment is exactly the same. They just differ in size, right? In some countries, there are plenty of millionaires. In other countries, there will be fewer millionaires. So equally, it will work for hobbies. If you have a particular hobby, like me, myself, I have horse riding. I do horse riding. So anywhere I go, there are people who do horse riding and they have exactly the same needs, preferences, worries, and so on. My horse doesn't like me and stuff like this, but they need, the same riding boots, equipment, saddle, and stuff, and horses. So that means that the characteristics, the key characteristics of the segments are exactly the same in each country, but it will differ in size, right? So that's the first approach. The second approach is when you keep your product without any changes, but you will play with the segments because you will want to focus on cost efficiency. Changing product is the most expensive thing that you can do. But you will look for a group of customers that will like the product exactly as it is. So you will probably play a little bit with positioning, you will play a little bit with communication, maybe pricing, but the product will be kept the same. The group of people, the segment will be different. So this is also an example that we used in this class before, and this is the camera, right? That was an SLR camera, which means like a digital, but the big, heavy, bulky stuff. And when they internationalized this particular product, as you might remember, they had three different segments with very different customer groups. And because the customer groups were different, young, experienced, not experienced, like maybe a little bit conceited. So you had a different advertising appeal. You had to use different media to reach those people. You had different distribution. You had different price. But the key element, which is the product, remained the same, right? So your customer group was different, but the key product remained the same. For example, PhD program at our school at the University of Warsaw is typically for young people. They finish their masters and then they move to pursue a PhD program. And I just learned this year from our Kenyan partners that in Kenya, PhD program is actually for successful professionals. So people first go to the industry, they go to business, they gain experience, and then at some point they decide that they miss something and they enroll for PhD program. So you don't get 25-year-old PhD students. You get people who are 30 plus and they already have a lot of experience and they take it as like kind of like very serious step and advancement of their career, right? So that would be the same program, but a different segment of customers. Does that make sense so far? Okay, I don't see much enthusiasm, but I can relate. Okay, thank you. All right, so this is how it can work. Okay, this is the illustration we have. We keep the same product, but segments, their characteristics, they will be different among different countries. Then we have the third approach. And this is going to be something in between because first you're going to look for countries which are similar. And then within those countries, you will define what is the target segment. So the target segments will be the same within particular groups. And you can group your countries depending on the basis of various criteria. For example, economic. Let's say how advanced the countries are, or how much do people make, if that is relevant to your product. You can look at geography. You can say, oh, Baltic states, small countries, small number of people, similar locations, similar political, geographical, economical issues, a lot of interconnections. Or you can say Mediterranean countries, right? Also located around the Mediterranean Sea and with some common characteristics. You can use for political criteria, for example, dictatorships. Why not? Maybe you have something to offer there. And you can look at religious criteria, which is surprisingly relevant, especially for food consumption for products like this. So you can divide your market on, let's say, Catholic and Islamic Muslim countries. We have a Polish company that makes sweet snacks like cookies and so on. And they recently they gave this big interview when they said that the big customers of them are in the Muslim countries, and they have to make sure that the products are halal, and like they meet all the standards. And this is like a special procedure, but it's absolutely worth it, because the people, I mean, like there is the good match that the people, those people from Muslim countries like the product a lot. They can also pay quite a lot, so that became a big part of this company's operation. And this is more or less how it looks if you try to put it on some kind of a graph. As you can see, there is a group A of the countries, group B of the countries, and a different approach to segmentation, right? In group B, this is like the top, let's say, group of people, for example, those who are the most affluent, and in group A, something in between. Different sizes, different groups. And my example here, that's the computer. Okay, pickup trucks. That's also something that seems to be used in a different way in different countries. In the US, pickup trucks are working cars. You would put, I don't know, like some hay or animals or some, you use it for work basically. So it's a utility car. While in Poland, pickup truck is a symbol of success. You will drive it in Warsaw. You will take, like 3 parking spaces, and you would feel, like a boss, right? Like
In
someone
Mexico,
who,
in Mexico, it's
yeah,
the same.
it is the same, right? Okay, here we
Yeah.
go. So, so apparently, yeah, yeah. So we have Poland and Mexico. We would be in the same group, right? Of those people who use pickup cars as symbol of successes. Okay, so that's the thing. Okay, Denise, you raise your hand. Go on.
Yeah, I have a question. You have already groups, like a group of countries, like you say, like Poland and Mexico and wherever country that is very near for us. Um, sorry, but I think so. I just want to understand this because it's like a common thing, right?
Yes.
Something like someone, I mean, in different countries, for them represents something. I mean, it's
Yes.
not very specialist, like a very organic food or something like that, right?
Yes, I mean, like when you group the countries,
Yeah.
you look at similarities between those countries regarding your product. And as you say, you can look for countries which are very eco-conscious or in favor of organic food. And you can look for countries that, for example, cannot eat some kind of like, let's say, meat products for, let's say, religious purposes, right? For religious reasons. So the idea of grouping countries is to find similarities between them, and that will make it easier and a little bit more effective financially, because you will have a similar marketing plan for each of these countries, right? Because they are similar. So, like they say, many international companies, they look at the Central Eastern European region, and they say, okay, these countries, they are the same, or not the same, but they are very similar. So many products which are offered are roughly the same in Poland, Czech Republic, or Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary, and so on, because we come from the same region, similar, let's say, well, let's cross out Hungarians. There is no
Similar
similarity.
culture, maybe.
Yeah, maybe culture,
Maybe.
maybe geography, and so on. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So that would be that. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So the last approach is you basically go completely crazy and free, and you have a different segment in different country, which also means that you have big resources and that you can diversify your activities, and you are trying to be close to each customer group in each country. It is quite tricky to find a product like this. I was thinking about the bike. Maybe, a bicycle is used differently in China. It is used differently in Poland. It is used differently in the Netherlands. It is a different approach to bikes when you go to the United States, right? Because there it's a kind of like a suicide mission, because like it's a big country, so you use it for like recreation. For Poland, you can have it both for fancy city riding or exercise. Then in China, it is like a basic means of transportation. And in the Netherlands, it is also a basic means of transportation, but for a different reason, right? In China, because of economic reasons, and in Netherlands, because of their development and eco-consciousness, right? So that means that you have a different group of customers in each country, and you kind of like modify your product to some extent to fit the needs, the necessities, and so on. So that is the most expensive, the most advanced procedure for those companies that want to be very close to their customers, and they go for the full adaptation. And speaking of that, when we look at the positioning, so all of these activities that are aimed at having this unique image, this unique understanding of your product, the key aspect here, or the key decision that you will have to make when you internationalize, is how much of your positioning can you keep the same? How much do you have to adapt because you have different segments? So that will depend very much on your market, right? So what are the consumption patterns? Why do they buy your product? What is their position? On how globalized the industry is, how similar are the markets, and what is the image of your company. And the decision that you make here comes down to, well, a single or two questions, really. Whether you standardize or adapt. Or actually, the question for real is how much? How much do you standardize? How much do you adapt to make sure that you are capable of fulfilling your objectives? So as for the standardization, what does that really mean? Okay, that's the same. What it means? Standardization means that you don't change your marketing operations. What you really want to keep the same is the product, because product is expensive to manufacture. Any modification on the product will be followed by technology, by processing, by logistics, and so on. So you make key savings if you manage to keep the product the same. This is the iconic standardized product, which is a Big Mac. But what really happens if you do standardize? You will create what we call a strong global brand and image. So your brand and your image will be unified. Those people who can hear the name of your company, they will have more or less the same idea of what you do and how you do it. So that's definitely that's a plus. Then you will achieve economies of scale because you will make a lot of the same. So the production will be easier, the marketing will be easier, logistics will be easier, and so on. There is a chance that if you are consistent, you will strengthen those consumer tastes and preferences. You will support them in this like idea that, yeah, that's what they like, and this will be the same, like globalized and unified, and it will go along with your image. Then you can possibly get increased quality of the product because you master a process. You do not experiment too much. You're focused on like a single way of delivering it. So that means that you will have those benefits of experience accumulating while you operate. The management is easier because there's a single product that is typically followed by further standardization of marketing activities. However, there are some limitations, and potentially you will lose a little bit of flexibility, especially or agility, really. You will not be able to follow market trends too quickly. And because of that, your product can meet kind of like this lower acceptance, because people will say, yeah, I mean, like I liked it the first time, but I would prefer it to be, I don't know, bigger, better, smaller, sweeter. So because of this lack of adaptation, some people may not necessarily love your product as much, and the local expectations can be different from what you deliver. As the answer to that, we have adaptation. And adaptation is, of course, the bipolar opposite when you adapt your activities to local markets. And some of the things, as I will say in a moment, some of the things have to be adapted no matter what, because the market is different. However, the key adaptation stays within the product, and that will be dependent on what you do. So what you can achieve with adaptation? Well, market relevance, the fit between your product and the market, and that will drive higher demand and higher revenue for your products. Potentially or possibly, you will have higher customer satisfaction. They will like it more because it fits their preferences. It fits their needs better than a standardized product. Occasionally, it might be forced by the need of compliance with local laws. Sometimes the law will say, oh, you cannot use sugar in the product. This is what Coca-Cola does in the United States. They use aspartame because sugar is prohibited as a sweetener in soft drinks in the United States. You will have to decentralize your operations. That means that the structure will be flatter. There will be procedures which are a little bit less formalized, and you will have this opportunity for local initiatives. And you can say, oh, like I just found out my people like this product better if it's produced this way, and then you can have higher engagement of local employees and management. However, the cost is, or the difficulties, the disadvantages come with costs, which are definitely higher complexity. And it is also possible that if your product will be very much different in every country, then your brand will get diluted, right? So it will no longer have this clear, unified image. And there is an interesting, well, I found it interesting, case of a product that went through stages of adaptation. And this is the Barbie doll, right? I don't know if you had your Barbie doll, but yeah, well, the typical one is what you can see here, the blonde, tall, like blue-eyed Barbie doll. And the doll was created, I think it was designed in the 50s or in the 60s in the United States, and that was the reflection of the American dream, right? They wanted the girls to want to be like this supermodel Barbie doll. And Mattel company with time realized that this model, this look of a Barbie doll is a little bit limiting if you want to go abroad. And hence you can see different versions of the Barbie doll. You can see an Indian version, you can see a dark-skinned Barbie doll, you can see a Japanese dressed Barbie doll. So different hair color, different clothing, but still kind of the same shape, right? So Mattel, in search of meeting market needs and also in search of further profits, the doll was adapted to local cultures and so on. But this is not the end of the game. What I found out recently is that Mattel actually acknowledged the fact that women are no longer, they're not the same, right? They are not supermodels with blonde, long hair and blue eyes, that women come in all different sizes and in all different heights, and also do different jobs other than being a partner for Ken. So to me, it is an interesting case showing how little girls can change big companies' way of thinking and way of operating, because it's the little girls who wanted to have a doll that they can find more relatable, right? And so nowadays you can buy, of course, you can buy this iconic Barbie doll, but you can also have a Barbie that will be your kind of more like a friend, like someone you can relate to. So as you can see, this adaptation can go really great lengths. I must say that this is a big departure from the typical Barbie doll. All right, so when do we use which approach? Standardizing typically is used when we have product that is used the same way, it satisfies similar needs, it has the strong global brand image, and you are aiming for economies of scale, so you want to keep saving on the production. The markets are quite similar, or at least not important to you, right? Because all of the above would be true for a Mattel company, but they apparently recognize the importance of foreign markets, and they realize that they can be much closer to their customers when they adapt. But typically, that's for the standardization, and also products which are short-lived, products which are fashion items, or they are like those fads, those short periods when the product is en vogue, when people want to buy it, and then it just doesn't make sense to adapt. You have a standardized version, you sell it, then the trend dies, the fashion dies, and you just move on with a new product. Adaptation in terms means that you acknowledge different customer preferences. You are aware of different market conditions that will push you a little. For example, different income levels, different legal regulations. Another aspect that will force you to adapt are activities of your competitors. If they do what you do, but in a different, more diversified way, you will be forced to follow. Otherwise, you'll stay behind, you'll fall behind, and you will become less relevant. This is also, this approach is adapted when you have products which are culturally sensitive, like those things which depend on language, on habits, food, religion. This is kind of like very culturally marked, let's say. And also, these approaches will be more or less typical for different, let's say, companies' philosophy. If you are ethno or geocentric, you will aim more for standardization for different reasons, but still, if you are more polycentric or regiocentric, you will try to adapt more. But what is interesting is that marketing and business, it's always moving, always fluent, always changing. And because of that, even when you start with some strategy at the beginning, for example, ethnocentric approach is a passive standardization because you just transfer your product, you export your product, you don't care or you don't know any better. But with time, you learn that when you make small adaptations, you will be more successful, you will be more profitable, your customers will be more happy, potentially more loyal, and so on. So each of these strategies has some iteration that typically makes them revise their strategy. Polycentric approach, first and foremost, you have individual offer for each market, but with time, you see benefits from standardizing of certain things, less complexity, less expensive, and so on. So that means that this approach is fluctuating and you always look for some kind of a balance. And that also means that you never have like pure standardization, pure adaptation. You have something in between with inclination to lean towards one or other option. As for the marketing mix, there are some elements which are easier or more difficult to standardize, and those more general aspects are easier to standardize. For example, target market. How do you want to be perceived? Hence, positioning. The key attributes, branding, maybe packaging. These are the things, the brand mantra or the advertising appeal, the slogan. These things can be standardized. However, stuff which is soft, like soft skill related, people related, and market related, they will be more difficult to standardize. For example, distribution. In every country, you have a little bit different setup of intermediaries, different customs, how people buy product, how do they consume, how much do they pay for that, and so on and so on. So you will have to lean towards adaptation in these aspects. And that concludes the STP. So to remind you, you first have to understand and describe your current STP, your current segment, target segment, and the positioning. And then you decide whether when you internationalize, you keep your STP the same, or you modify it, or the question is actually how much and in which aspect will you modify it, okay? And that brings us to the second set of decisions, and this is the tactical level. This is the marketing mix. We have 4 elements, and today I am going to rush you through product decisions. Then again, I am assuming that you already have a lot of knowledge about product, and I'm going to briefly refresh it for you so that you kind of like get a clue what I'm talking about. And then we will just focus on those decisions which make sense while internationalizing. So when going abroad with your product. So let me start with the stuff, the scary stuff that you should know already. Here we go. You are supposed to be aware that the products have levels, kind of like levels or layers that will depend on what language you use. And there is a core level, actual level, and an augmented level. Are you familiar with those? Have you heard of them before? Yes, no, maybe? Okay, not much. So let me briefly remind you, but then I encourage you to find some information just so that you can that you that you will be able to describe that. Okay, so the core benefit is a part of your product that is typically intangible, and that this is the key value that your product gives you. For example, I'm looking around to show you some examples. What do I have here? What can I use? I'm back at home, so I have lots of stuff. So now, what I'm going to show you, I have different kinds of pens. All of them, even though this is a red and soft one, this is a highlighter, this is a green one, this is a blue one, this is a red one. Some of them are permanent, some of them are not. They all have the same core benefit. You use them to write, to mark something, and so on. So the core benefit is the key utility that your product has. This is some kind of a drink, and this is some kind of a drink. Both of them have the core benefit of quenching my thirst. So that means that all liquids will do the same to you. The core benefit will stay the same for the whole product category. So all smartphones will combine for you communication and entertainment, right? All drinks will satisfy your thirst. All pens can be used for writing. And now, when we go to the actual product is a physical form of the product. And when we say that all smartphones provide connection and entertainment, then depending whether it's an iPhone or whether it's a Samsung, HTC, or maybe a Motorola, like a foldable one, you will have that achieved at a different level. And that difference can be summarized with the design. They look differently, right? Some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, some of them are heavier, some of them are lighter, some of them have better resolution, and so on. So design and product features, that's what makes a difference. Then you have a different branding. I use the brands to differentiate the products. I said Apple, I said Samsung, HTC, or Motorola. You have different quality level. You have different packaging, if that's applicable, right? So actual product is the physical form that differentiates your product. This is the tangible part of the product that you can come in touch with. And then you have augmented product, which is again intangible. This is again something you cannot touch, but you can very much experience it because it comes with different services. So you can have a warranty. Sometimes it's 2 years, sometimes it's 3 years, sometimes it's 5 years. You can have some training They will tell you how to use the product. They can assemble the product for you. They can install the product for you. They can offer some after-sales services later on, like checkup, right? Or you can change oil, or you can change something about it. You can have delivery. You can have financial services that will come with the product. So this is an extra value that your product delivers. Does that make sense? The levels, yeah, okay. So that's the one part of looking at the individual unit, the individual product. And then when you step back and you look at your whole company, you have what we call a product assortment. And a product assortment is a mix of different products. And you can describe this assortment by saying how wide, how long, and how deep it is. And the last question, whether you can have what we call a product system. So those complementary products that work best when they are applied together. As for product assortment, let me show you how wide the assortment is. This is answered by saying how many different product categories do you have. This is Procter & Gamble, and these are the brands or the product groups that they offer. They have disposable diapers, they have detergents, they have bar soaps, they have toothpaste, they have paper tissue. A little bit different technology, a little bit different use behind each of these products, but within bar soaps, they're all bar soaps, right? They can be differentiated by price and brand, but this is all the same product category. So Procter & Gamble assortment in this particular slide, it equals 5 because they have 5 different product groups. Then the question is how long your assortment is. And the length of your assortment is measured by the number of brands that you have. Some companies are single branded, like Philips. Everything is called Philips. Yeah, it is a Philips computer, it is a Philips AC unit, it is a Philips hair dryer. So it's the same brand. So that means that their length is just one. It is only Philips. In this case, the length is of, I don't know, let's say 15 or maybe even more, because every single brand counts. So the length of diapers is 2. The length of detergents is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And then for the whole company, you just add all of them together. And what does that mean? The width, how wide your assortment is, tells you how diversified your operations are, right? How many, like, there is only Polish expression that comes to my mind. How many different legs your operation have? How many different aspects or how many different activities do you undertake? How diversified you are? The question of how long, how many brands, when you have brands, that means that you tend to go deeper into the market and that you address different segments, because you'd typically have brands which would be offered to different customer groups. You don't want them to be offered to exactly the same customer group because that will cannibalize them. And that means that people kind of like one brand will steal customers from other. And when you look at Pampers and Loofs, this Loves thing is cheaper than Pampers. So it is for people who are more budget conscious. And Pampers is for those people who can afford it, right? So the length means kind of like how much are you focused on penetrating the market. Many brands, lot of resources, very expensive strategy, but it also means that you are present in many customers' lives. While single brand, there is more focused, and that means that you address more or less the same group of customers with potentially different products. And then we have the question of depth, how deep the product is. And the depth is the number of varieties. When you have, let's say, what can it be? When you have Coke, for example, Coca-Cola, regular Coca-Cola, it comes in different flavors. It comes with different sweeteners. It comes in different sizes. It comes in different containers. You can have a small can, you can have a big can, you can have a small bottle, you can have a big bottle, you can have a family bottle. You can have a 6-pack, right? So these are all variations that constitute the depth of your product. So if you have customized product, like let's say jewelry, then you probably have 1 or 2 brands because they are typically kind of like branded within the product category. So you have necklaces, and let's say they have the sunlight edition and the moonlight edition, stuff like this. But then you go very deep because each of them can be customized, each of them can be made individually. Does that make sense so far? Okay, somehow. Let's see. Good. All right. So these are this is the basic information, and this is the information that you kind of have to retrieve from your head. You have to collect it to understand what your company does, to describe what is the current product strategy of your company. And then you will think, how much can I standardize my product? How much can I modify my product? And what strategy of going abroad should I undertake? And we already talked about the standardizing and adapting. We know that core product, which is this major, the key benefit, this is easier to standardize because it's kind of like, as we said, it's the same for the product category. The further you go, the harder it is to standardize, which means that you have to adapt. And with the services around the product, you'll probably adapt it most, like the delivery type and maybe some warranty and extra services and so on. So that means that core product typically remains standard, and then actual product and augmented product, those outer layers, they tend to be more adapted. And now, what are the product strategies? We have 3 of them. First one is called product transfer. Then you have adaptation, and then you have product innovation, which interestingly can be backward. Yeah, that's oxymoron, but yeah, forward and global. So let me show you examples and description of each strategy. Product transfer, this is kind of like a simple export stuff. It basically means that you offer exactly the same product, period, and thank God, right? This is the strategy that is liked because it is most cost savvy in general, and that means that you don't play with the basic product. You maybe will have to do some cosmetic adaptations like changing the language on a label or maybe on the packaging, right? So the core product stays the same, like the ones that you can see here. There's a shaving razor and that's Gillette, and then you have Samsonite suitcase. You don't change anything, right? You have the suitcase that is, let's say, a carry-on. It's a cabin luggage, so it meets the cabin requirements, and you don't change it. It is the same regardless of where people buy it because they use it the same. But you might have, let's say, instruction in a local language added. So that's a cosmetic adaptation, let's say. And if you're lucky, you can have double transfer, which is the same product and the same positioning, and that goes for Samsonite, that goes for Gillette, because I mean, like, it is used in the same way by all the customers. So as you can see, that is the result of your segmentation approach, right? When you have the same segments at home and you have the same segments internationally. The other possibility is when you have product transfer, but you adapt communication. So that means that you still keep the product the same, but you use different communication because the segments are different. So that was the case of the photo camera, of this SLR camera that we discussed. Different communication in Japan, different communication in the US, different communication in Europe, because customers were different. Still, product exactly the same. So that's the product transfer strategy. And it works best for this ethnocentric approach when you have not many geographical markets, similar foreign markets. You want to achieve cost reductions. You're not very much involved, and you aim for standardization. To some extent, global approach also will be suitable here, but it comes with a slight twist. For global strategy, we have this global innovation approach when you design your product for global markets from the very beginning. But in this case, they would be quite similar. Product adaptation in turn. That means that you change specific attributes in order to adapt it to local conditions and preferences. And in this case, product is always adapted, but communication and positioning can remain the same or can be adapted as well. And these are two examples. The first one, Pampers. I'll be returning to that case quite a few times today and next week, because Pampers is a interesting case when they and they learned a lot when they decided to introduce their products in Japan. Because they realized that even though we're talking about baby diapers, Japanese customers had like different expectations. First and foremost, they needed smaller diapers. American babies from day one or day zero are bigger than Chinese probably too, than Japanese babies. Japanese people anthropologically are slimmer and shorter on average than Americans. So that had to be reflected with the Pampers. They had to introduce different sizes, smaller sizes. Another thing was that they learned that babies are color coded in Japan. So different color for girls, different color for boys, while Pampers was all green, which is neutral, right? So they had to color code the diapers. And then the communication. This is funny, actually. Pampers uses this image of stork. This is the bird, right? The bird with the long beak and white and so on, white and black. And they, on their packaging, they had a stork delivering a baby, because that's kind of like a Western way of thinking that, you know, babies are brought by those storks. Do you have the same in your country? Yes, no? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, it's the same.
Is the same. Do you know what is the Japanese way of looking at where the babies come from? I just learned last week, but I'm still very happy about it. They come from giant peaches. You know, so there is a giant peach, a fruit that breaks, and there is a baby inside. And when I learned about it, I thought, oh, how funny it is, you know, like people and their cultural stuff. And then I realized that people in Poland used to believe that you find babies on the cabbage patch. So we're not much better, right? Apparently.
Even in Italy.
Oh, same in Italy? Okay, so you
Yes.
see. So yeah, people get weird. And the interesting thing with these Pampers and Japan, because Japan is kind of like a distant country and they are also very much into their culture. When they looked at this stork, at this bird, they had no idea what it means. And they say like, what? I mean, like nothing worked, yeah? So in this case, Pampers learned the hard way, and they had this difficult start, and they had to change the product, and they had to change communication. While the other commercial that we have here, this is for gasoline, that's American, whatever. They have the same slogan: put a tiger in your tank, which means this is powerful gasoline. It is going to give you, I don't know, drive, whatever. But what they are doing, they adapt the product to different geographical conditions. And they say, in order to have the same performance, you have to adapt gasoline depending whether you sell it in very hot places, very cold places, very humid places, very dry places. They simply have to have a little bit different chemical ingredients inside to make sure that they are equally safe and effective, right? So that's only product adaptation. The communication stays the same. And then Okay, and also clothing, right? As you can see, clothing is adapted and you get different sizes in each country. This is always very stressful because we have similar sizes to Germany. So when you look at, like my sizes are somewhere here, and in Italy it is 46, 40, 48, and it's like, okay, that's difficult to accept that you might be that large. But it comes from those anthropological features, right? So people in Italy are more petite, right, than people in Germany and Scandinavia. Scandinavians are the tallest people in Europe, so they do need everything longer and bigger, right? People in the UK are typically also bigger than continental Europeans. So you adapt your clothing, even if it's the same design, you have to have different sizes for particular markets. So that's the product adaptation strategy. What can the adaptation refer to? There are several. I'll have several examples. Well, the ingredients, the composition, right? We already talked about this. This gasoline. Coca-Cola uses different sweeteners. In the US, you don't use sugar. In some places, you use stevia. In some places, you use aspartame and like other chemicals. So that actually comes from regulations. Then we have different utility and functions, right? Mobile phones, they can be exactly the same, but you can have like a higher resolution, or you can have a bigger screen, or you can have I don't know, like different kind of buttons depending on what the market actually needs. Then we have technical and operational parameters. So that comes down to what's inside the product. That could be, I don't even know, I'm not a technical person. So probably the size of your hard drive, or maybe the resolution of your screen, or maybe what else could it be? How many mechanical horses does your car have? Stuff like this. Then quality. Quality of the same product can differ between countries. The Polish people have this fixation on German detergents. We are absolutely convinced that German detergents are better than ours, that they are, like higher quality, that they are more functional, more effective. And I always thought that this is like us being a little bit paranoid. And then I listened to, there was an interview with one of the big managers from Procter & Gamble or Unilever or something like this. And they asked this question, is there a difference in quality? Because like when you go to, like, I live in a small, not small, but I live in a town outside of Warsaw. And once a week, there is a guy who comes with a truck and it says detergents from Germany, and he opens the truck and he actually resells stuff that he brings from Germany, and there's always a line of people. So like this conception is still live in people's heads. And
I think
yeah.
so. It's the same in Mexico. When you want to buy a good product, many people go to USA and then came with a new like a Coca-Cola product, like this kind of a product, and obviously they finish everything because in Mexico some brands, I think so, are expensive than for example in some of the malls in USA.
Yeah, okay. So it's the same logic. So it's not the us, like we're not the only crazy here. But what was the response, the answer that this manager gave to a question asked on live TV? And she actually said that there is a difference in quality between Polish and German products. So we were like, oh my God, like all our crazy stuff is now fed. We will never be the same. But she said that this is because people use the product differently. For example, the Germans, when you tell them use 1 scoop of the product, they will actually use 1 scoop of the product. But the Polish, you say 1 scoop, like you just put as much as you can, right? So we overuse the product. And because of that, they say that in order to protect your clothing we decided to have this more diluted version for you, right? So we're getting stuff that is lower quality and they say it's good for you. Here we go, right? That's a marketing logic behind all of that. Okay, what else can be adapted? Sizes. You know, IKEA, when they went to the US, they had to make everything bigger, bigger beds, bigger sofas, longer curtains. Americans actually, when they that was also a funny thing. They thought that flower vases were cups, you know, like glasses to drink, because Americans are used to everything bigger size. When you go and you buy coffee in the United States, in Starbucks, you know, like you get a bucket full of coffee, right? While in Europe, it typically comes in small quantities. So all the sizes had to be adapted to bigger living spaces and needs of the product. Then we have the style. Let me ask you a question. At your home country, where do people put washing machine? Is it the kitchen? Is it the bathroom? Or is it the laundry room? Or somewhere else?
Third floor.
Third floor.
The bathroom.
Okay. Any other things? And anybody? Where do you guys put your washing machine? And
We have like a backyard in the houses, and then we put there the washing machines.
in the backyard. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Anybody puts their washing machine in the kitchen? Crazy people do that, right? I heard that the French do that. What about bathrooms? Okay, yeah. So that would be also typical for Poland to put the washing machine in the bathroom. Yeah. So as you can see, it can be put in a different place, and that comes from like how spaces are used and how big are the spaces. I mean, like you have to have like if you put your washing machine into the in a patio at the back of your house, that means that first of all you have a patio, right? You don't live in a block of apartments. You have to have a good weather. If you put it on a third floor, that means that you have many floors, right? So again, as you see, there is a lot of local flavor that comes into that, and that will make those machines different size. For example, if you need to squeeze it into the kitchen, it will be smaller, right? If you can put it in a special laundry room on the third floor, at the back of the house, it can be bigger, right? It can be more, you know, like sizable, and it will take more space. So style also matters here. Then we have labels and different requirements, language, ingredients, nutrition, halal, non-halal, you know, like those things that you want to have on labeling products or eco-friendly stuff. And then we have packaging, which becomes more and more important nowadays, because we are, especially, you know, like the younger generation gets more and more conscious about the carbon footprint that is left, and we are striving, or marketers and companies are striving to use the resources wisely, not to leave too much waste behind, and they come up with those interesting solutions in terms of packaging. They try to minimize it, they try to make it recyclable, reusable, and so on. And in other places, it is not the case. So that's also like an element of adaptation. And then last kind of adaptation, that's the brand name. Do you know this brand name, this ice cream? Do you know this logo? In Poland, in Europe, it's called Algida. Do you have it in your country? Is it called the same?
It's similar for Hollanda.
Yeah, we have it in Italy.
Google, yes, but not the same name.
What's the name?
I forgot.
Hollanda, I think so. I mean, the name is Hollanda, is very similar, the logo.
Okay, all right. I will show you because I actually got a map. Algida has like 20 or 30 different brands used in each country. So maybe you will find yours. Okay, so that's also a thing that can be modified. Okay, also services. Now, what you do not change, you don't change the core utility, the core benefit, and like the basic operational parameters. So a car will be a car, a soft drink will be a soft drink, a washing machine will be a washing machine, and stuff like this. When do you use this strategy? When you tend to go polycentric, many markets, diversified, you are very much involved, you have high resources, and you follow up with adaptation of further marketing activities. So the last strategy that we have for product is called innovation. And innovation means that you prepare a new product that will be offered to a foreign market. And we have three types of innovation: backward, forward, global. And let me show you examples of each of these. Backward or retrograde innovation. That's a weird thing. It sounds a little bit contradictory. But it basically means that you keep up or you create an outdated version of your current product and you offer it to foreign buyers. To some extent, it can come from a fact that your domestic market or you're moving on and you have leftover products that you want to sell somewhere. You will look at those markets which are less developed and you will offer it there. Or sometimes you can spot an market opportunity and you will create this old-fashioned backward innovation product and you will offer it. So the example that I have, one is, for example, typewriter, right? Like a manual typewriter instead of computer. Nowadays, it is sold in two kind of like lines. One is for those hobbyists who want to have like this mechanical experience. You can imagine an artsy writer who actually says, like my muse is located in those keys and they use it and stuff like this. Or it goes to those countries that experience energy shortages and cannot use computers, right? So then you have those typewriters. Maybe not, this one is styled like old-fashioned, but you can have typewriters which are like, they look more modern. They are still used to substitute for computers where you don't have access to, let's say, electricity on a regular basis. Another one, and this is interesting, in my opinion, of course. This is a washing machine that was, it's a hand-operated washing machine that was designed by Colgate-Palmolive and offered mostly to certain set of African countries, the countries that had shortage of water, shortage of electricity, and they were basically considered to be poorer countries, less affluent, less developed. Still, you have people who want to have clean clothes, right? And Procter & Gamble came up with this design, and it was kind of like a masterpiece when you think about it, because they created something that is useful in these markets. They started creating brand awareness, and at the same time, they initiated the creation of a market for their detergents, because once you have a washing machine, you will want to have a washing powder and so on and so on. So as you can see, they were hoping to build a market for themselves, market recognition, and then market for their products later to be offered. So it didn't come like purely from goodness of their heart, that it was a business decision, but at the same time, it made this process of washing clothing more easier and more affordable to people from that market. Then we have forward innovation. Forward innovation is the opposite, which means that you offer abroad a newer version of what you sell in your, or what you currently manufacture for your domestic market. So that is true for, let's say, high-tech products. Sometimes you have high-tech companies and they produce top-notch advanced products, but they are offered in other countries which are more advanced. There is often a case of India, which has many specialists in IT and in computing, and they have many companies that specialize in offering those solutions. But typically they do it for international markets, for other markets, because India is not, it's not ready to receive and to use this technology that they offer. It is also a case of fashion, you know, like some countries are more fashionable than others. There is a fashion diffusion, and you know, like typically in Poland we get stuff like later than, let's say, people in Italy or in France, just because we are apparently a less prominent market in terms of fashion crazy. And the thing that you can see in the middle, this is this car, this dog wearing fancy clothing, and this is actually a case of a Polish company, a small company, many years ago, like maybe 10 or like 15. Those people were crazy enough, and they said, well, why don't we try and create some nice clothing for our dogs to walk them? Because at that point in Poland, if you wanted to walk a dog in the rain, you would just put a plastic bag on it, right? I mean, like, it served definitely the protective purpose. The dog was dry and probably even warm, but it looked nasty, right? Because, you know, who wants to wear a plastic bag over head and body, yeah? So they thought that there is a niche in the market. Initially, they were wrong. In Poland, people were not ready to pay good money for nice clothing, for nice items for their dogs. So those people started selling abroad. They actually built a decent recognition. And then years later, they returned to Poland because our, you know, like, we finally realized that, yes, I mean, yeah, why don't we take care of our dogs? Why don't we give them some nice clothes, and why don't we play with them in this way? So that's a forward innovation. And then the last kind of innovation is what we call, okay, so sorry, this is when you use the forward and backward innovation. So the polycentric approach, many diversified markets of significant sizes so that it makes economical sense. You adapt your marketing activities, you are very much involved, and you often do direct investments. So you're actually physically present in those markets with your manufacturing and selling. So the last type of innovation is called a global innovation. And this is the case when you design a global product to be sold in many foreign markets. That often is a case of technological products, of software, and so on. I have a case of that you can see here at the bottom, that was a startup that designed and produced a microscopic, it's a pen with a microscope. So you have a microscope that is size of a pen, and it can be used in this very precise surgery. So this is a very specialized product, and that obviously is offered not to one market. This is a global need. This is a global niche, and that was a company that operated as a born global from day one. So that's a product innovation strategy. Another example of, in my opinion, product innovation, this is these are meat substitutes. Kurczak, it's when you say it, it sounds like chicken in Polish, and this is a plant-based substance that substitutes for chicken. And Impossible Pork is a meat grown in laboratory that substitutes for pork. So that was for those people who for some reason do not want or cannot eat meat. And yeah, so they were also quite successful a few years back. When do you use this innovation? Typically with geocentric approach, globalized markets, you will try to standardize your activities, and you will be very much involved in international markets. And because of this diversity, you will also use different entry modes. And that brings us to the last decision regarding product, like what to do with your brand. Brand is very important. Brand is one of the key assets that you have in company. Sometimes the brand itself is worth more than your whole operations, productions, people, and so on. So having a brand is a big decision, and many companies go for branded products. My question to you is, have you ever heard about a product that does not have a brand? Have you ever seen a product like this that doesn't have a brand name? Is it possible? nowadays? That's a good question, I can see. So what do you think? Is it possible to have non-branded products nowadays or not?
I think yes.
It's a very brave thing to say. Thank you very much. And yes, you are correct. It is possible. You still get quite a lot of products which are not branded. For example, all fruit and vegetables, they are not branded, really. Well, most of them, right? Chiquita is a brand. But typically when you buy an apple, it just says what kind of apple is it. It doesn't have a brand because brand is given by a producer. You can also get those generic products which are only labeled by the name of the producer and the name of a product category. For example, butter. It will say butter produced by this and this company. So that means that there is no branding, right? You know the manufacturer, but the product is not branded. That typically will go with this strategy when those products are a little bit, I mean, like they will be less expensive and potentially a little bit lower quality than branded products. At least those companies who use branded strategy claim so. So when we go for branded approach, you can have a producer brand, like Apple is a manufacturer and makes products and puts its brand on it. You can have an intermediary brand. For example, there are companies that make products, food for Tesco, and then Tesco puts their own brand on it. So they are sold under the brand of Tesco, but they are manufactured by somebody else. Then we can have a joint or component brand when two companies decide to cooperate together and one claims that uses the brand of the other. For example, when you look at your computer, there is a chance that if it's a laptop computer, it actually says on it Intel Inside, right? So you have a computer, mine is Asus, it says Intel Inside. So this is a joint component branding because Asus claims that they use Intel processors and that is supposed to create this synergetic effect. For producers operating on a single market, they can have one brand or many brands. When they operate on many markets, they can have a global brand or local brands. Let me show you examples just to make it a little bit clearer. This is the case of brands that you know, those. LG, Panasonic, Samsung, Electrolux, Whirlpool. They make products with their own brand, but also they make appliances which are sold in an American department store or a chain of department stores. They're called Sears. And they have their own brand. Sears has their own brand, which is called Kenmore. And LG, Panasonic, Electrolux, Whirlpool, and Samsung manufacture appliances which are later sold with Kenmore brand. So this is an intermediary brand, right? They have their own products sold somewhere else with their own distribution channel, but also they have products which are sold or manufactured for Sears to be sold at the with Kenmore branding. And as you can imagine, Kenmore is less expensive than Panasonic, Electrolux, or Whirlpool, right? It's a strategy to use your production capacity to the fullest and to have this steady channel and a steady source to sell your products. Then we can have a company that within one market uses many different brands. And this is, I think it's a Procter & Gamble, could be Unilever, can't remember. But they have different washing powders for different segment of customers, right? So Ariel is the top one, then you have Gain, then you have Tide, then you have Ace. It is typically for customers who have a little bit different needs and definitely different means. So they are positioned at different price quality level. Then when we speak about component brand, I already mentioned Intel, but Gore-Tex is also a really nice example because Gore-Tex just manufactures the fabric that is later used in various clothing. So you can buy Eco shoes, and they say that they use Gore-Tex fabric. You can buy a jacket from Wolfskin, and they say that they use Gore-Tex fabric. So this is a component brand, and because the brand is good, it's a promise of equality. Then it makes sense to pair up, and it makes sense to use this image to the advantage. Then we have global brands, the same all over. Different countries, different markets, but exactly the same name: Shell, Coca-Cola, Visa, Scotch, Newsweek, and stuff like this. And then we have an approach when we have local branding. So L'Oreal does that. They have this LCF brand name that, depending on a region, has a little bit of a different vibe, and it looks a little bit different. And that is to make it more accessible, to make it sound nicer to your customers. And this is actually what I found fascinating, and this is what I'm going to show you. So like the scope of how diversified the brands go. Here we go. This is Algida. Find yours. Mine, of course, is Algida, right? This is all Eastern Europe. But then we have Walls for UK. Do we have people from Spain here? That would be Frigo. I had you speaking of Mexico. Do they have, okay, Holanda, right? So it's exactly the same. I think Denise, you said that, right? Then we have Kibon in Brazil, Good Humor in USA, something weird in Israel, why not? In India, Quality Walls, right? So different names. And this is partially a result of the fact that Algida, when they entered those markets, they actually acquired existing companies, and they decided to keep the brand name, just modify it with their logo, because the brand name was recognized and liked by customers. Then we have Mr. Proper. This is Eastern Europe again, but a detergent used for heavy cleaning, let's say, and different names in different countries. And then we have, again, in Polish, it's Kokolino, and this is a fabric softener. And the logic behind the change of the name here is that apparently in each language it sounds soft and fluffy. So in Portuguese you have fofo, that means fluffy actually. In German you have kuschelweich, sounds fluffy according to them, right? Who are we to criticize? Yeah, we have snuggle, we have huggy. That's kind of like all this cuddly stuff. And then the last one that I have for you is Lace. I always thought that this is the brand that doesn't change anywhere, but I was proven to be wrong upon the proper search. This is also a brand name that is adapted to local markets because of the acquisition process of different companies. So that concludes my part for today. And that brings us to your part of today. And your part is the same as it typically is. So there is a task sheet on campus website, and I am going to put you into breakout rooms, and I will try and help you with finding your teammates. I will let you join the rooms, and we have 1 hour to complete that, so that should be absolutely enough. And I am going to be here. You can either, I will be visiting you guys in the rooms, asking if you need any help or any assistance. Just look at that, because those questions which are asked in the task sheet, they are supposed to help you gather information and then put them into your project, so that part of the job is done. And if you have any questions, you can either pop to the general Zoom, or I will be cruising and asking you if you need assistance. Okay, any questions right now? Anything you need to know? Or I'll just let you do your stuff. Okay, good. So I am creating the rooms, and I will see who is where. Let me find you. Oh, okay, I have to open it, I suppose. Open all rooms. Okay, the rooms are open, so you can pick yours. And just to remind you, and I have to go to my Excel file. Oh, okay. Where is my Excel file? Okay. Okay, so people in each group, if you don't fully remember, it's as follows. We have Mustafa, Francesco, Maciej, Yukina, and Leonard in group number 1. Nicholas, Denise, Eugene, Claudia, and you in group number 2. We have Marina, Angela, Valentina, Hema, and Lena in room number 3. We have Lola, Silvia, Jorge, Claudia Porta Aguilar, and Yu Hui in room number 4. We have Mohammed, Paul Thu, Vladislav, Leticia, and Elena in room number 5. We have Aydin and Nijat in room number 6. Let's see if you can find your rooms. If you cannot, I can help you manually once I know where you belong. Okay. Okay, is there a question? Yes, go on.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in my group is here.
Really?
Yes.
What do you want to do? Does that mean that they don't work with you at all? Are you in touch with them somehow?
Yeah, they told me earlier, but I can leave the meeting, right?
Yeah, you can go to your room or you can stay. If you have any questions, you can ask. If you don't have any questions, then the time is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Everything is clear.
If everything is clear, then you basically you're free to go. Mhm.
Thank you. Bye bye.
All right, absolutely. All
Have
right.
a nice weekend.
Yeah, thank you too.
Yeah.
How guys,
Okay.
how are you? I have to hold on. Let me just stop the recording because I forgot about it.